to serve every need within every budget. Call on us at 219-362-2828. That's 219-362-2828.
A new week, and we start with a new round of selling pressure across commodities. This is Who's Your Ag Today's Monday midday farm market update. Long liquidation in the grain markets today as the ag
and your money, our tax dollars, everybody in this community feeds into that, myself included. So really proud of that. And in 2021, we were able to save that same amount. And in 2022, we're on tap again to save that same amount. We're still able to feed these inmates and provide the nutritional values. I want to stress that because that's something that people may, oh, you're saving money and you're lessening the service. Well, that's not true. So we're proud of that.
We've got Al out on the show today. Al was running for the Democratic candidate for sheriff for LaPorte County. If you have a question for Al, the Liquor Vault on-air line is 219-362-0522. And you can also put the comments in our Facebook live stream or send us an email at soundoff@967theeagle.com, and we'd be happy to ask the question for you as well. So, You talked about efficiency in tax dollars. I think you would consider yourself pretty fiscally moderate to fiscally conservative, these kind of things. And there's a lot of debate going on right now. People want to, pay police officers more. But the question is, I think having talked to multiple governmental people, everyone's committed to paying more. The question is, where does the money come from, right? Which is oftentimes a question for budgets, right?
Yes.
We all want to get there. How do we get there? So Mayor Dermody has been pushing for this local income tax. They're not voting on it at today's county council meeting. Where do you stand on the local income tax for public safety employees?
So I'm a policeman, so I'm obviously a recipient of it, but I didn't take this job for the pay. With that being said, I do support it. I do, and I look at it as an investment in your investment. So LaPorte's been dear to Jamie and I, and my entire career I've worked here. Jamie works in Michigan City, and we are committed to our community. So in order for a community to thrive and have economic strengths or growth, you have to have the public service portion of that. I mean, it should be part of, if I'm a prospective company that's going to move in here and provide, numerous jobs for community members, I would look at and see what kind of a police service we have, what kind of fire service do we have, what kind of EMS service do we have, and those are important. So to me, it's shown there's 12 entities that feed into this process. We got all your different town
councils. The council asked all the towns and villages to have their council and boards approve it. Yep.
And 11 of those have passed.
All of them, right?
So,
that they asked.
Yes, and you trust the process. These people were elected in these positions to make decisions for their constituents in their respective communities, and they're telling us this is what they want to do. I support that as well. I think I like the sustainability of it. And I trust that our government officials, our county council men and women, will do the right thing with that.
All right, we've got Al out on the show today. Al is running for sheriff in the Democratic primary here coming up in May. If you have a question for Al, you're welcome to call us in the Liquor Vault on-air line at 219-362-0522. You can also email me at soundoff@967theeagle.com. We're going to take our first break of the day. We've got a caller. We'll get back to you right after this, but keep listening to 96.7 The Eagle.
Ben Conowitz here, owner of LaPorte Seamless Cutter. My parents started LaPorte Seamless Cutter in 1982 with one goal in mind, really. Our customers' 100% satisfaction. And we are still providing the same customer service that Tim and Seal Conowitz started all those years ago. Give us a call today for a free estimate at 219-362-9972, or you can visit us on the web, www.lpseamless.com. 219-362-9972.
Good news, Surf Fiber Internet is growing in LaPorte. Get 1 gig speed with a free whole home Wi-Fi router for only $65 a month. There's no hidden fees, no contracts, and free installation. They are building out more neighborhoods every day. So visit surffiber.com to check your address for service or call 844-955-SURF for more details. That's 844-955-SURF. This is a limited time offer. Speeds may vary and some restrictions apply.
Payne Powder Coating and Sandblasting right here in LaPorte can meet all your commercial, industrial, and individual powder coating, sandblasting, and welding needs. Whether it's a car, truck, or tractor part that needs welded, or you just have a question, give Bob a call, 219-575-4309. Payne Powder Coating and Sandblasting can powder coat anything up to 12 foot long and do production runs of 1 part or 1,000. The next time you find yourself looking for a professional, give Bob a call at 219-575-4309.
Michiana weather. Mainly clear this afternoon with highs around 34. Northerly winds 8 to 15 miles per hour. Cloudy tonight, lows level off around 22. Highs around 43 tomorrow. From the Weather Center at hometovnnewsnow.com. Right now, 31.
Thank you for tuning in to Sound Off. You can now text or email your questions directly to the studio. Call or text 362-0522 or email your questions to soundoff@967theeagle.com. This is Sound Off.
Welcome back, friends. You're listening to Sound Off. My name's Nate Laux. Today on the show, we've got Al Ott. He is a LaPorte County Sheriff candidate for the Democratic Party running in this May's primary. Let's get to our first call of the day. Hey, thanks so much for listening to the show. Thanks for calling. What's your question for Al Ott?
Thank you, Officer Ott, for coming on the air and answering questions. And thank you for your service and also for throwing your hat in the ring. People that do not run for an office have no idea what it all is involved.
That's true.
My two quick questions. This is Steve Hollifield.
Hey,
my
Steve.
two quick questions to you would be, one, are there any more options that you see to outsource to save money as Sheriff Boyd did with food services? And also, the elephant in the room that always gets kicked down the can. There's a jail that's in desperate need of replacement soon.
Yeah.
There's land acquisition now since, due to political greed and corruption in 78, our jail is landlocked. What are your thoughts on the jail, too? Thank you.
It's a good question, and it's one that I think hasn't gotten a ton of attention yet because there's so many other pressing needs, but it is every year getting more and more pressing, correct, the jail?
It is. I don't know. I guess we're going to talk about the second question first.
That's first, yeah.
There's I don't know the exact number, but it's kind of like when we talk about dog years, right? So every year a jail is in operation. It's like 7 or 8 or 9 or whatever it is, and that's because of the abuse that it takes. It gets used. It's a 24/7 facility. So Steve, your question's a great question. It's been posed already to me, and I think the other candidates. I will tell you that it's probably going to be a needed conversation, and nobody likes to do it because then we're talking about spending money again. But it is definitely something that needs to be, at least the discussions need to start happening, and it's probably going to be with that next sheriff.
And his first question?
Do you have that? I don't remember what he said.
I don't either, but he was thanking you for running for election, these kind of things. I'm sorry, Steve, I did forget your first question. But anyway, I think a little bit about money. Do you know where any other funds are going to come from? What happens if, I think there's some concern that what happens if you use all these funds, right? Where else can money come from? How do you do this?
Well, you got to get creative, and it's, if anything, that some of the positives that have come from coronavirus, and I dare not really talk about that. It was some rough times for us for everybody in general, just for life. But it's made us, a positive has been, it's made us think differently and innovative and be more creative with the dollars that we have. So I remember some of Steve's question here. So with that, he's asking about, I believe, we have outsourced the kitchen, and we did that. I wrote the RFP, request for proposal, and we posted that like we're supposed to do by government guidelines, and we took in all the different bids. So I think there were 5 total bids that were accepted. We went through all those and looked at which one's going to be the best fit for us. And by doing that, we did save money, right? We've already discussed that. But so I'm not sure exactly what outsourcing what Steve was talking about exactly. But I can tell you, like, we are always looking to be more efficient with our tax dollars.
So it's something, though, I think if I can speak for Steve, and I do apologize, Steve, I think what Steve's wondering is, it's a basic disposition, right? Are you willing to then take what you did for food services? And I want to talk a little bit more about that, because I think that is people don't realize that it's a fairly expensive line item for our county and for our sheriff, right? But are you willing to do that for other things as well? I know Steve's been an advocate for, if you can, outsource it and save money, outsource it, correct? What is your thoughts on some of that?
Yes and no. I don't think it's a clear-cut answer on that. And so, like, with the kitchen, when we went into contract, the first question I had, because I'm not in the business of people losing their jobs, we have people that are dedicated to our operations, and we have to be dedicated to them. So those were questions that were asked from the get-go. And if there was a company that was going to say, well, we don't want them.
Yeah, because you had
a problem.
You had current employees, correct, doing the job.
We did, and we had an open relationship with them, and we were upfront with them about that, and they trusted us, and I think that was an important part of our success in that transition. So, as the thing played out, going to the contract, the nice thing about that is the employees that are in our kitchen now all have benefits that are free, that's offered to them by this company, in some respects better than what we have. So they have medical and dental. I don't have that. I have to pay for both of those, and they get those for free. And I'm pretty proud of that. We were able to provide something more to those employees, and I think that's important. So the outsourcing thing, I don't want to just outsource for bottom dollar. We do have to take care of our staff. It
has to make sense, right?
It has to make sense.
Yeah. We've got Al on the show today. The Liquor Vault on-air line is 219-362-0522. You're welcome to give us a call. You can also send me an email at soundoff@967theeagle.com. Or if you're shooting with us live on Facebook or YouTube or whatever, just put it in the comments and I'll read your question for Al as well. Let's get to another comment, or another call. Hey, thanks so much for calling. What's your question for Sheriff Candidate Al?
Hey, Duke. This is Brett Davis. How you doing, buddy?
I am great. How are you, Brett?
Good. This question is going to be for all you candidates, since I respect all of you.
Yes.
But I know over the last few years, the uniform and the badge has always been a bad staple, I guess, for the community at some point. What's your stance on the community support programs? And then I'll go ahead and hang up and then listen to your answer, please.
Thanks for calling, Brett. Define for me first and our listeners, what are community support programs?
You're asking me, or are you asking Brett?
No, I'm asking. What is he meaning by community support programs?
Well, there's a ton of them out there. I think in this community, I comment about this a lot. There's been an attack on law enforcement in this country. With that being said, not in our community. Mm-hmm. We have a group of people in our communities, LaPorte County, I'm talking about, Michigan City, LaPorte. They support us.
Yeah.
And I cannot tell you how grateful I am, because we all turn the TV on, and at night when you sit down with your families, and when your profession is being attacked like it had been, it's a little bit disheartening. But we couldn't, the nice thing about it, we couldn't give a life, like a real life example of it for us. Mm-hmm. That's refreshing. So Brett, you asked that question. To me, it's extremely important, and I think we have the support. You specifically, Brett, are somebody that knows the value of what we do, and you aren't shy of sharing how you feel about us. Your type of what's the word I'm thinking of? Attitude, your outlook on us is contagious, and I appreciate it.
We've got Al Ott in the studio today, and we are talking about his candidacy coming up here in May. He's got two other primary candidates as well that he'll be running against in the Democratic primary. Andy Heineck will be on the show here on Friday, and then we got James Arnold coming up as well, I think on the 8th of February. And so we're talking to all of these, and then we've got Ron Heeg coming up as well for the Republican, and Andrew Morse will come on as well as soon as we can find a time that works for his schedule. So we're talking about some of these things. Now, we're you know, we could talk a little bit more about, you know, Blue Lives Matter, these kind of things. All of this is happening. However, you know, I do know, and a friend of mine, or a mutual friend of ours that's a police officer, will say there's nobody that wants more reform in police than police officers themselves, right? What are some reform that you think a sheriff can do locally that will help not only, obviously, you've got the retention of employees, these kind of things, but also just for community safety, community trust, these kind of things?
Right. So you got to invest your investment. I've talked about that a lot. The training that we offer to our staff is a real big deal. That we have a young department. With that, we have a lot of folks that are eager to learn and be the best that they can be. So that the training that we offer is I think going to be key to that. And so, trying to think how I want to say that. I lost my train of thought, actually.
Well, it's interesting you do say training because, again, my father's a former police officer. I talk about some of these things. And you know, some of the more national scandals, these kind of things, oftentimes do come down to training, right? Their training was just wrong on this, or they didn't have training, or their department was too busy to do the training, or they didn't have enough funding for the training, these kind of things. Sure. So how important is that for you as you know, a sheriff candidate if you become the sheriff? Because, you know, all of that time, money, energy has to be advocated by the person at the top, right? Right.
That right there explains exactly why it's so important. If we don't have the training, you know, that doesn't protect us down the line if something sour should happen. I'm going to speak about the jail. So what we've instituted in there, we have a field training program that was done before me, but we've actually built off of that. We've offered jail officer leadership training, and I think that's a real key to some of our successes back there with that retention that you talk about. So we also it feeds right into the idea of creating a positive environment for your staff. If people have a good place to work, they're going to want to be there, and they're going to provide a good service. That's the benefit is going to be the community.
Mm-hmm. We've got Al Ott on the show today. If you have a question, you're welcome to call us 219-362-0522 or email me at soundoff@967theeagle.com, and I'd be happy to ask the question. Or if you're streaming with us online, just let us know in the comments. Let's get to one more question before break. Here's my question. What kinds of funding sources is Mr. Ott looking at for some of his agenda? Is it just primarily based on lit tax, or is there other funding sources that you can find?
Well, our funding basically comes from our tax dollars. So we aren't trying to subsidize anything, and we're not trying to find other ways to tax our community or anything like that outside of what's already been on the table. I think my approach on all this is to worry about what we have rather than what we don't have. So what I mean by that, if you make $50,000 a year, you shouldn't spend $70,000. Mm-hmm. And so you need to really focus on the management of all of it rather than worrying about what we don't have and what we can do with what we don't have. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So,
all right, we've got Al Ott on the show today. We're going to take our final break of the day and get back to some more questions. If you have a question, 219-362-0522, let us know. You can give us a call. You can email me at soundoff@967theeagle.com, or if you're streaming with us online, just put it in the comments of YouTube or Facebook, and we'd be happy to ask as well. Hey, stay where you're at and keep listening to 96.7 The Eagle.
Car problems often strike at the absolute worst times, but you can rest well knowing that Cannon's Automotive Service is here for you and dedicated to get you back on the road with prompt, efficient, same-day service. The same Cannon's commitment that LaPorte has trusted for over 50 years. Cannon's Automotive Service, now with 2 locations, 710 Tyler Street and 909 Boyd Boulevard.
We're Cannon's Automotive. We fix everything.
Hi, I'm JT. I did a really good job of hiding my addiction to pain pills from my friends and family. Most of them never knew. On the outside, I was doing just fine. But on the inside, I knew I needed help. It's not easy to ask for help when you're used to doing it on your own, keeping it locked away somewhere no one will find. But I found groups recover together through a radio ad like this one. I have my own recovery team, and they want me to succeed. They help with medication, group therapy, and more. It's helpful being around other people who know what I'm going through. All it takes is 1 hour per week. Short and sweet, but it helps me. I share my story because I know there's someone else out there who needs to hear it. Learn more about members like me at joingroups.com/radio or give groups a call 24/7 at 463-777-9475. That's 463-777-9475.
A life worth celebrating should be honored in a fashion fitting for the personality. At Haverstock, they build a service around the life story of your loved one. Here's Richard Weiss, owner of Haverstock Funeral Home.
At Haverstock Funeral Home, let me personalize your family's life story. Life celebrations can be a fisherman, a golfer, love Christmas, enjoy the casinos having our slot machine on display, a baker, car mechanic, or even an Elvis impersonator. We do it all for you to keep the memory of your loved one with you forever. Please visit our Facebook page to see what we're doing.
Haverstock Funeral Home and Cremation Service, portraying the life story of your loved one. Learn more at haverstockfuneralhome.com or stop by 602 Maple Avenue, LaPorte.
Hey, who's hungry? Because I've got a deal for you. Dennis Adele here to introduce you something new to the Morning Mayhem. Every weekday at 6:55, it's Denny's Diner. Yep, Joe and I will cook up some trivia questions, and if you have the correct answer, you'll be the winner of a $20 gift card from either JJ's Side Out Bar and Grill, the Burger Bar and Grill, JJ's Pizza Shack, Wanna Pizza, or Nowhere Bar and Grill. So join us weekdays for Denny's Diner at 6:55 on the Morning Mayhem for your chance to win here on 96.7 The Eagle.
Your opinion matters. We invite you to share it by calling or texting the Liquor Ball on-air line at 362-0522. That's 362-0522. Now, back to Sound Off on 96.7 The Eagle.
Hey friends, welcome back to Sound Off. This is our final segment of the day. We've got Sheriff candidate Al Ott in the studio with us. On Friday, we've got Andy Hynek with us, and then we're just going to get through all the sheriff candidates so that when you go and vote in whatever primary you're voting for, you'll have a more informed opinion on who you're voting for. You can always go to hometownnewsnow.com as well, and you can find all of the candidate information there. Mr. Ott has filled out his agenda, put it all on there, so you can read more about him if you'd like, and find out a little bit more about what he and the other candidates stand for. All right, if you have a question, you're welcome to call us 219-362-0522. We got about 12 minutes left of the show. All right, let's get to another caller. Hey, thanks so much for calling. Thanks for listening to the show. What's your question for Al Ott?
Yes, Mr. Ott, you said that you are in favor of the tax to try to keep the officers here.
Yes.
You make approximately $77,000 a year. The sheriff makes $143,000 a year, and most of the captains like Hynek, Haig, they make $77,000.
Sure.
Now, what is your expectation as to how much really you should be making if you feel that they're not getting paid enough and that we need this tax? And then you've been there for 28 years now, and if they hadn't been paying you enough money, why didn't you move on? There has to be another reason that people go into the police enforcement. How much do you really think that you should be making?
All right, good question.
Okay,
yeah. So again, the question is okay. You're making these wages. You've been there 28 years, so it's been good enough to keep you there. I think that's part of the question. So but also, what is a fair wage, right, for a police officer?
So I don't think so. This is a leadership question from my perspective. It's not so much about me. I've I have been there. I'm like, as you said, sir, I've been in there at the department now my 28th year, and it's not so much about me and what I need to make. It's really about what our entry-level officers are making, and I think that's really important. If you look around surrounding agencies, that's where we are falling short. My wage does fall short there, but this isn't about me. This is about the men and women of the department and supporting us as a whole. So,
Where does sorry, I'm going to interrupt here, Al. Where does a first-year new officer start at?
I believe it's 53,000, somewhere in that area.
Okay, with the increase that the council gave them last year? Is that right, roughly?
I believe so. Don't exactly quote me on it, but okay. I believe so.
All right, and so the question becomes then is if the wages were so poor or just not adequate. I don't know if anybody would say they're poor, but just not competitive. Sure. I think is part of
that's really the question.
Yeah. Why have you stayed?
I talk about this a lot, and people may not like to hear it, but the intangibles. This is where I live. I grew up here, and I know Nate Laux is right down the road. I know, Mr. Smith or whoever that person is that is important to me. They're here, and this is where I live. So there are intangibles about why I stay at LaPorte County, and I've got a very strong vested interest in the sheriff's office. I've got family heritage. I've had family members that have retired after 40 years. My father was a law enforcement officer for 26 years for LaPorte City Police Department. I think that's pretty well documented of who my family is. But so this is where I've raised my family, and I have really deep-rooted interest in this place, and so it's been good to me.
All right, let's get to another question. We've got Al out on the show today in the studio. What's your question for Al?
Aladdin Jr.
Yeah, what's your question?
I have a question. You kind of took the words out of my mouth, though. Your family's been in the law enforcement industry for a long time, done a good job. Can you kind of hit on where you're at as far as your relationship with John Boyd and the two big city police chiefs in LaPorte, Michigan City, and the surrounding communities? And, obviously, you said it. Your dad was a good chief here in LaPorte, and your uncle. So you've been in the business for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, I wasn't quite sure where that last caller was coming at, but you might look at the bookings that you guys are dealing with every day and the thuds you're taking off the streets. And I think guys like that would probably pee their pants dealing with those kind of people. So if 75 or 85,000 is a lot of money, I got an old dumpy apartment I'd like to rent them.
All right.
Anyway.
All right. Thanks so much for calling. He did bring up, you've got Deion Campbell in Michigan City. You've got Paul Breton in LaPorte. And I'll even throw in Nate Heineck over in Westville. What is your relationship with some of those officers and departments?
All three of those are friends of mine, and they're friends. Matter of fact, Chief Campbell and I actually worked in the jail some years ago, right? When we worked the floors. So we have a good relationship. We meet on a regular basis. I talk to Deion a lot. Paul Breton is much the same. When I worked the shift, obviously our location of our department, Paul was working the same hours that I was, and so we would meet a lot, collaborate with what different thoughts or different things that we are doing with our shifts, making sure that we're all working together. And that's with those two specific agencies, we have a good working relationship with them. We're not perfect. Do we have hiccups along the way? Absolutely. But that's why we continue to keep these relationships so we can work through them. You mentioned Nathan Heineck out at Westville PD. He's doing a tremendous job out there. He's a young officer in age and in years as a policeman, but he's a very intuitive guy. He's got a lot to offer for our communities. I see him doing some really good things out there.
All right, let's get to another caller. Hey, thanks so much for listening to the show. We've got Al out in the studio. What's your question for Al?
Hi, Al.
Hello, how are you?
Fine, thank you. How much is a police officer's life worth? You know, I'm sure those totals he was quoting were before taxes, and we know how much our government takes out of our pay.
Mm-hmm.
But how much is a life worth? They're protecting us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want to know that when I call, you guys will be there. And I know one thing, coming from a small town, a lot of people breaking into the law enforcement agency will use a small town as a stepping stone. And I know that EMS has had some issues with that. I mean, difficult issues with people leaving because they're going to a higher paying job. We want to be competitive, don't we, and keep our police officers here?
Yeah.
Correct?
Yes.
Yep. All right, let's get to another question. Hey, thanks so much for calling. You're on Sound Off today. What is your question for Al Ott?
Hi, Al. This is Nair from a few houses down. Now I noticed you don't have a hot press sheriff sign in your yard. I was wondering why. You're not promoting your own election.
There was something about a sign and why there's not a sign there in maybe in a yard, I think, in his yard. Yeah, if you have a sign in your yard, why not? Why are you?
He's asking why the sign's not in his yard?
No, do you have a sign in your yard?
I absolutely have my sign in my yard. I didn't choose to put a big one there because my wife says people know that we live here. So, but we do have a sign there. I can tell you, if anybody wants a sign in their yard, I would be glad to provide them with one. But the more important part of that, and I appreciate the call, and I support my own cause, I guess, if that's where we're going with that. But the more important issue is just to get out and vote. And it seems like 8 years ago, I had this conversation with folks day in, day out, just finding it important, finding it to be a priority, and it's gotten easier since then. So there should be no reason for anybody not to vote. The unfortunate part is that it still may occur. But just get out and vote.
All right, let's get to another caller here. Mm-hmm. Thanks so much for calling Sound Off. Thanks for listening. What's your question for Al Ott?
Hello?
Yeah, you're on. What's your question?
Hello? I just want to say, that guy that was wages that a sheriff gets paid, how many people would take and put their life on the line? They could pull somebody over for something stupid as speeding, and that would be the last thing that they would do. I mean, if you ask any of us to go put our life on the line like that every day, we would all say, nope, we're not going to do that.
All right, yeah. Yep, thank you so much. I think a lot of people feel the same way. We've gotten a lot of callers and a lot of people messaging us the same way. They don't feel like the police are overpaid. So let's get to another caller. Hey, thanks so much for calling. Thanks for listening to the show. What's your question for Al Ott?
Hi, it seems like throughout the show you've done a lot of concentrating on the jail and what you're willing to do for the jail. What about the guys on the road? What are your feelings about what you're going to do for them?
Well, that's a good question, and there's a lot of focus on the jail. If you really look at what the responsibility of the sheriff, I'm going back many, many, many years before all of us, that was the primary focus. That was his responsibility, to run the jail. His deputies actually ran the policemen out there. So anyways, times have clearly changed. So what are we going to do for our merit side? Many of our merit officers started in the jail. So it's a culture that we want to establish and maintain a family approach, or a family atmosphere. It's what we are constantly working on within the jail and actually on the merit side. So it's not just about the jail, but when we're talking about running for sheriff, that's a priority. It's one of the biggest liabilities the LaPorte County has, LaPorte County government. I have a $4.6 million budget, and there should be a lot of focus on that. It's over half of the sheriff's office budget.
All right. Well, this is all the time we have for today. Al, thank you so much for being on the show. I'll give you the final word. How can people find out more about you?
Well, you can go to my website. It's Ott for Sheriff, Ott, OTTFOR, sheriff.com. On there, there's my cell phone is on the website. I'm on Facebook. I don't have a page. I just do it private, but you can reach out to me there, and we can communicate.
All right. I want to thank you so much for being on the show. Good luck to you. We'll have some of your opponents on the show here coming up. Andy Heineck will be on Friday. If you have questions for him as well, you're welcome to listen to that show or just find out more about where some of these other candidates stand. I want to thank again Al for being on the show today. Good luck to you. Thanks for listening. Keep listening to 96.7 The Eagle. We'll be back on Friday. Take care.